Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Viewers, many forms of governments are used by countries around the world, but very few governments are completely alike. Even if they use the same type of system, presidential and parliamentary, of government kind, they can vary in specific details from one country to another. But certain general aspects typically are the same in countries that have the same type of system. Both systems have good points, but in a country like Pakistan, where federating units have different ethnicities, languages and cultures, the smaller federating units consider the presidential system as an effort to exploit and dominate them. People of smaller provinces, however, feel that under parliamentary system there is chance for the regional parties to make it to the top slot in the province. In Pakistan, unless remnants of feudalism, Jagirdari system and tribalism are done away with, there is no hope that either of the two systems could work. In the light of past experiences, now the question arises that is Pakistan badly in need of an updated election system? Will this updated election system help to upgrade Pakistan's government system? Does Pakistan need to upgrade its government system immediately? Why we go through a marathon of general, presidential, by-elections, local body elections, and why are we wasting country's resources on this marathon? But the bigger question is that who will bell the cat? Who will change the system? And even if the system gets changed, who would be able to bring the true people, the true legitimate people to the right post? We will be discussing all these aspects of presidential system versus parliamentary system of the government and ongoing form of current government in Pakistan. I have Mr. Zaid Hamid with me, as you know. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Zaid Hamid. You can tell that we will be talking about the parliamentary system that we have currently in Pakistan and what are the flaws and the drawbacks of this system. But before we start our discussion, we have put together a report on both the systems, parliamentary form of system and the presidential form of system, and after updating our viewers with that, we will get back to our discussion. Let's have a look at that.
Parliamentary and presidential are democratic system that is quite successful in European countries and the US respectively. In a presidential system, the executive leader, the president, is directly voted upon by the people. And the executive leader of the parliamentary system, the prime minister, is elected from legislative branch directly. The president only responds to the people. The legislative branch can't really do anything to threaten the president. As a result, president can make it more difficult for the legislative body to do anything. In the parliamentary system, if the parliament doesn't like the prime minister, they can cast a vote of no confidence and replace him. This tends to make the executive leader subservient to the parliament. Currently in Pakistan's parliamentary system, the parliament has both the executive and the legislative character. In parliamentary system, political parties enjoy strong position. Political parties have less of role, no party discipline in presidential system. In general, the majority of the world's established democracies use parliamentary system. Parliamentary system has proved more successful in countries having developed a two-party system, as responsibility for decision is taken by the collective cabinet rather than a single figure. The circumstances in Pakistan make parliamentarian system as a very bad choice. Main reasons are lack of education, caste system, feudal system and weak political parties. In every election, the same corrupt feudal lords and big political families come to power again and again. In Pakistan, we have 436 parliamentarians, including 104 senators and 342 members of National Assembly. On the other hand, presidential system snatches the power of government making from feudal and gives it to the whole nation so that they could directly elect the president themselves.
Yes, Mr. Zaid Hamid, as you saw our report on both the systems, now since Pakistan has a parliamentary system, do you think that it's the best system for Pakistan at this time, or do you think that we are in 21st century but we are still following the British era rules system? How do you see the current system?
See now, the time has come that we seriously debate the subject that we have chosen today. Pakistani nation, Pakistani state and Pakistani society cannot survive now in the 21st century if we continue to cling on to the British legacy of the colonial era. To put it very simply, Pakistan had achieved its independence in 1947. But that was only an independence by name. Pakistan actually never became independent even after 65 years. And why do we say that? Because the laws that are implemented in Pakistan today are still from the British era, the legacy of the colonial period, the Anglo-Saxon laws, the judicial system which is running the country. Whatever the political model might be, the judicial system of the country, which is entrenched, which is solid, is decadent, decomposed, colonial, retarded and absolutely retrogressive, which does not allow the country to move, nation to move into the 21st century or progress into the new dynamics of the needs of the era. So what has happened is that for the last 65 years, Pakistan has been experimenting with various political models. Half of our life has been spent under the military dictatorship, and half of the time we have spent under various political parties. Within the political parties also and within the military dictatorships also, we have had presidential systems also, briefly on both models. Political parties also, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto became the president. He was an elected prime minister, elected political leader, but then decided to become the president in a parliamentary democracy. While the military leadership also, General Ayub Khan, General Ziaul Haq, and Pervez Musharraf never declared himself the president but the chief executive, but the powers he had were almost of the president. So what Pakistan has seen is that all our political systems, whether parliamentary, presidential or martial law, all three have collapsed. All three have failed to sustain the national ideology and identity and integrity.
What are the reasons, if we have tried different systems as well, then what are the reasons that none of the system has succeeded?
You see, this is precisely what we need to debate now. The Pakistani nation needs to debate now, because over and over and again we are repeating the same mistake and expecting different result, a typical definition of insanity. You make the same mistake and you expect a different result this time. It won't happen. And this is the dilemma of Pakistani society. We are into a vicious cycle of absolute insanity. Constantly, whenever the people expect that the political parties that are in Pakistan would be able to deliver a new parliamentary system, a new prime minister would come, political government would change, a change would come, a revolution would come in the country, and after a few years they get disgruntled. The collapse of economy, the collapse of social order, the bad governance, the corruption, mismanagement, treason, treachery of the political governments, they bring down the governments, army takes over, and then huge long periods, almost a decade of military rule. In Pakistan, the three military rulers have come each for 10 years each. Ayub Khan was for 10 years, Zia was for 10 years, Musharraf was almost for 10 years.
And when we talk on democracy, that it hasn't flourished in Pakistan, most of the political leadership, they blame the era of the dictatorship. They say 30 years have been taken away from us, and that's why democracy wasn't able to flourish in Pakistan.
This is a very ridiculous...
So is it the system that has failed the democracy, or is it the people who run that system that has failed the democracy?
This is the politicians live in denial in this country. They don't want to accept that they are complete failures themselves, and they always look for scapegoats to blame the military rulers. On the other hand, the reality is the system has also failed, and also the people who run the system. As you very rightly said, that the political parties in Pakistan are actually political dictatorships run by few families, feudals, actually the people who claim to be political leaders, but they are worse than political dictators, fascists actually in reality, as far as running the country or their own political parties are concerned. So and in fact some of the political parties are either cults or mafias. For example, MQM is not even a political party from that sense. If you take Altaf Hussain out of it, the whole party, in fact the whole mafia would fall apart. Imran Khan is actually a personality cult, PTI. You take Imran Khan out of PTI, PTI will disintegrate. Similarly, PMLN, you take Nawaz Sharif and his family out, PMLN does not exist. And in People's Party, you take Bhutto, Bilawal the Bhutto legacy out of it. The People's Party would not exist. So all these parties are either ethnic, either linguistic, either regional or political feudal dynasties. None of them are actually in political parties in true sense as we have in the West. So what is actually happening in Pakistan is that the Pakistani society is trying to experiment with transplanted political ideas when in reality the ethos of the society, the construction, the fiber, the basic fiber and DNA of the society does not accept those political models which are being transplanted from outside. This dilemma exists in every segment of Pakistani society, and that's why we say today Pakistan needs a massive social, political, judicial re-engineering. The whole country needs re-engineering. All these political models and the political ideas that you have today, the judicial model, the economic model, have to be thrown out of the window because they have all collapsed. The judicial model have collapsed. The economic model have collapsed. The political models have collapsed. The various political models which have been experimented, parliamentary, presidential or martial laws, everything has collapsed. So where do we go now from here? And this is something where the saner minds of the country need to sit together. Because everybody, we are now constantly experimenting with the same stupidity which we've been doing for the last 65 years. And now as a nation, we are heading for a crash which is so disastrous that nation would not be able to recover out of it, because we have experimented everything and nothing has worked.
How about that, as they say, that this is the first time ever that one democratic government has successfully finished the 5 years and they have handed over to the second democratic government. So how do you see this milestone being achieved?
You see, in context of reality on ground, the fact of the matter is that this is the last 6 years, the 5 years of democratic rule were the most unfortunate, most corrupt, most treacherous, most disastrous years in Pakistan's history ever. So what is the objective? What is the purpose of bringing a government? If the purpose of bringing a government and letting it rule for 5 years is to destroy the state, then yes, that's a milestone we have achieved. We have completely destroyed the state in the last 5 years of democracy. If the purpose is to bring stability into the country, that purpose was definitely killed during that 5 years of democracy as well. The PML government, to be fair to them, has been handed over a country which was actually falling off a precipice, which is actually disintegrating. And PML government, incompetent as they are absolutely confused now. They're in a dilemma. They're absolutely delirious to the limits of being insanity actually, that how to handle the crisis that they have at their hands right now. They cannot. They don't have the means, they don't have the resources, they don't have the capability, and they don't have the will. And again, once again, that PMLN is a family feudalistic dynasty. They're not a political party. And they do not represent the country as well. They only represent a certain class of bourgeois elite of the country, the feudals, the landlords, the industrialists. And as a result, neither they have the vision, nor they have the capability, nor they have the capacity within themselves to change the system.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, if we look at the system defaults, like the faults that we are seeing in the system, and we have a parliamentary form of system, and we talk about changing it to presidential system in the hope of bringing some betterment. But if the system is changed with the same political parties, the same people will come to the presidential system as well. And then the same corruption and all these flaws will continue. So how, that means changing the system is not a solution. So how do we re-engineer, as you said, how do we re-engineer all the political parties, because they are in Pakistan to stay? How do we bring new people up? As PTI caught some new people up, but then after coming into the KPK government, they are going in circles as well. So can we trust the newer people that would be coming up and they will be able to perform? So where do we go from here?
Let me give you some examples. You see, primarily Pakistan is a Muslim society, and Middle East, the entire Middle East is basically Muslim heartland. And you would note that nowhere in the Muslim countries you have democracy, except with the exception of Turkey. But Turkey is a different example. So in the entire Muslim world, the Muslim heartland, you don't find democracy. Why is that so? The fact of the matter is that Muslims are very different breed of people. We have our own culture, we have our own ethos, we have our own ideology, we have our own history, we have our own political, economic and judicial models. And this is something that Muslims have proven over centuries. For the last 1400 years, Muslims have built empires, Muslims have built political governments, they have built economic models, they have built judicial models. And some of the finest eras which humanity has ever seen were built under the Muslim rule, but starting up from the golden period of the Caliphate in the early times, the Khilafat-e-Rashida, the rightly guided caliphs, then coming up to the Abbasid, the Spain, the 800 years of Muslim rule in Andalusia, in Spain, the Ottoman Empire, the Mughals in India. Muslims have our own culture, we have our own traditions, we have our own values. And what is actually happening is, understand the philosophical aspect of the problem that the Muslim world is facing, in Pakistan particularly. That is, that while our faith is Islam, while we have our own culture, our own values, our own ideology, our own system of judiciary, economy and politics, Muslims have been, for the last 60 or 70 or 80 years, Muslim world is experimenting with transplanted ideologies from the West, because the West was dominant. West colonized the Muslim lands, they colonized the language, they colonized the politics, the judiciary and the economy, and everything that you see within the Muslim world now is actually a transplant which is in conflict with the Muslim faith. For example, the economic system, which is based on banking system of false paper currency, banks, the false credit growth cycle, the fractional reserve banking, the whole economic system which is built today is in conflict with Islamic belief, Islamic faith. As a result, when Muslims try to practice a transplanted fake economic model, they themselves get into a conflict, and as a result, the unstable man-made economic system collapses, which is collapsing all over the world today. And similarly for the judicial system also, all these systems that you have mentioned, the presidential system, the parliamentary system, the martial law, all these are man-made systems, made by different people, made by different countries, just to suit their own requirements. But then,
Mr. Zaid Hamid, then if they are man-made systems, and as you say that they have problems in them, then what kind of systems would be better for Pakistan? Who will make them? We will talk on that after a short break. We will stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, viewers. We're talking on today the political system of Pakistan, that what kind of model would be suitable for Pakistan. Today we have a parliamentary system and we have almost 436 parliamentarians. Is this the system that is a failure, or is this the parliamentarians that are running the system are supposed to be blamed for its failure? Is the change going to bring is the change of the system going to bring some betterment in Pakistan, or will the change of the system be the same if run by the same parliamentarians? We're trying to analyze that if the systems are not performing, then is this the system to be blamed or the people behind it? Mr. Zaid Hamid, as we were talking on the man-made systems that you mentioned, then if the man-made systems are a failure in Pakistan, then what kind of system, then who will make them that will work in Pakistan?
You see, let me give you some examples from within the region itself. Whenever there is a sustained, solid change from a previous system which is decadent, which is decomposed, which needs to be changed, the change has to be total. You cannot transplant the old system into the new one and expect changes, expect reforms. Giving you an example. In China, for example, when the Mao Zedong brought in the Chinese Revolution, they completely revamped, they completely overthrew the decadent old system of China and brought about a new communist model. Good or bad, but it was a total, it was completely totalitarian. It completely transformed the Chinese society, and it worked for them because it worked according to their ethos, according to the values they believed in, and as a result you see where China stands today. Similarly, when the Bolshevik Revolution took place in Russia in 1918, for a few hundred years Russia was ruled by czars, the kings. But then when the Bolshevik Revolution came, they overthrew everything which represented the Tsar family, which represented the system of Tsar. Tsar and his family were killed, the whole system was overthrown, and a new communist system was brought into place, and Soviet Russia, for next 90 years or so, a solid system was put in place which represented whatever communist values they believed in. So, and again,
in Pakistan, who will and how will this be done?
Let me give you some more examples. In Iran, for example, in Iran, again, there was a system of king. The Shah was there. But when the Khomeini's revolution came, they overthrew everything which Shah represented. A new system was created which represented the ethos of the Iranian people. And today, if there is any stable government in any part of the Muslim world other than Turkey, that is Iran. And Iran, what they have done is a brilliant example of what they have done. Have developed a political model which is closer to their faith, which has the best of all the Western and Eastern political models. They have integrated it, created a new one which suited their requirement. It's not a presidential system, it is not a parliamentary system. Again, it's a political system which has no political parties. At the same time, it's a political system in which you cannot have a dictatorship, but again, it is run and driven by the religious and spiritual ethos. And this is what we are saying. Similarly in Saudi Arabia, there was Ottoman Empire, it was part of the Ottoman Empire. When the Ottoman Empire disintegrated, the Saudis came and they overthrew everything, they removed everything, represented the Ottoman Empire, and new Saudi kingship was put into place. The purpose of these examples is that whenever you are making a new system, whenever you're making a new country, you need to re-engineer the whole political, economic and judicial systems. You cannot bring the hangover from the colonial past, from the decadent, old, decomposed systems, bring them onto a new nation, transplant them, and then expect that nation to rise. This is the dilemma.
That will exploit the newer system as well.
This is the dilemma of Pakistan. That Pakistan, a new nation, was born. Our elders, our founding fathers wanted to create a nation which would lead the world, which would reach out to the sky. Our founding fathers built this country on the ideology of the poet-philosopher Dr. Muhammad Iqbal and the most brilliant leader the Muslims had ever seen in the last 300 years, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And these two greatest of leaders created this land. If you read their poetry, if you read the writings, if you read the political ambitions which Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Allama Iqbal represented, wanted for Pakistan, it is stunning. They were the greatest people born in the 20th century. And on their vision, they wanted to create a pan-Islamic state. They wanted to create a state which would be a Islamic welfare state, which would lead the world, which would lead all the oppressed nations of the world, which would have a great role to play in the world, in the global scale, global politics. But in the Qaid-e-Azam, Allama Iqbal died before the creation of Pakistan. Qaid-e-Azam died immediately 1 year afterwards.
13 months.
And only the founding fathers were able to pass a resolution called the Objectives Resolution, which was passed in 1949, which is fortunately now is part of our constitution, but nobody practices upon it. Objective Resolution actually defines where our forefathers, founding fathers, wanted to take Pakistan towards the greatest of the glories by turning it into an Islamic welfare state based on the foundations of Quran and Sunnah, our religious and spiritual ethos. Allama Iqbal has used a very brilliant term which no political philosopher has used it in the 20th or 19th or even earlier centuries, the term which itself seems contradictory. He has used the term of spiritual democracy. Democracy today does not even have morality, let alone spirituality. So Allama Iqbal has used this very fascinating term of spiritual democracy, or which he defines in other words as benevolent dictatorship. Dictatorship nowadays is not considered to be benevolent in the modern political sense. But the poet-philosopher defines that there can be a spiritual democracy and there can be a benevolent dictatorship. And if the benevolent dictatorship is combined with spiritual democracy, you create a political model which is of the ethos of the Muslims. And this is where we say, Muslims of Pakistan need to refer back to their foundations, to their spiritual and ideological foundations which were given by poet-philosopher Iqbal and the founding father Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. After 1949, when the Objective Resolution was passed, till this day, nobody, no ruler of Pakistan ever referred to Iqbal or to Qaid-e-Azam what kind of political and social, economic, judicial model they wanted to create in this land. As a result, everybody who came were either feudals, either a hangover from colonial era, were all westernized, liberal, secular elite, and as they're all religious terrorists and extremists, and as a result you have the mess and the chaos in Pakistan today, that the nation is confused, no political model is working, judiciary, economy and social models are all those which were left by the British, which they had created to enslave a continent, which we imported simply from the British colonial era, and now trying to transplant them into Pakistan for the last 65 years, and it's not working.
It's not working. So now, where we are standing today, we have these 436 parliamentarians. After the 6 months, just 6 months ago, we had our new elections. We had these 436 parliamentarians, and the definition that you did, what do you see these 436 parliamentarians following, the system that they have come through? Can we monitor that system, improve that one first?
If we do not go too much into history, just the last 6 years, if just pick up the last 6 years when the first political government in Pakistan's history completed its 5-year-old tenure, and even that also had the same amount of parliamentarians and senators and provincial assemblies and the national assemblies, what did they give to the country? They were corrupt, they were incompetent, they were treacherous, they were rebellious, they disintegrated the federation, they emptied the coffers, they left the country so bankrupt that now Pakistan finds it almost impossible to even stand on its feet. We have no foreign policy, we have no defense policy, we have no economy, our currency is crashing, our national law, the law and order situation in the country is anarchic, country is in a state of war, the multiple wars are being imposed on the state. This is what the democracy gave us in the last 6 years, and this is exactly what this new government, which is now 6 months old, is actually following on the same footsteps. Not a single step of recovery from what the last previous government had actually left us with. The total chaos, the chaos is actually multiplying with every passing week. So this is what we are saying. The system is corrupt, incompetent and decadent. The people who are running it are corrupt, incompetent and decadent. And the combination that we have makes it so lethal. Arrogance, incompetence.
So if we talk about the system, if we move on, we update our system to presidential system, in which there is one person called president, and he's not answerable to legislative, he's not answerable to suppose parliament, then he would be able to command without the fear of being rejected from the parliament, and maybe that way of system can work better in Pakistan. Do you think that will work?
The point is, without any system of justice, no matter what kind of political model you bring, parliamentary or presidential or martial law, without an effective, just, dominant system of justice, no country can work. And Pakistan's justice system is Anglo-Saxon, hangover from the era of slavery when the British ruled the subcontinent. And this is what I'm saying. Please try to understand the point. This is what our founding fathers wanted. This is what Allama Iqbal and Qaid Azam wanted. That's why founding fathers passed the objective resolution. And they defined the first line of the objective resolution was that no law in this country would be made which is violative of Quran and Sunnah. We are Muslims. We have our own ethos. We have our own values. We have our own law. We have our own judiciary. We have our own economic system. We have our own political models. And this is the dilemma, that Muslims are being bombarded, are being forced to accept political, economic and judicial models which are completely at war with their faith. So this is the problem. No matter what political model you bring, if it is violative of Quran and Sunnah, if it does not follow the prescribed values defined in Quran and Sunnah, if it violates our basic constitution of Pakistan. Pakistan's constitution is not secular. The first line of Pakistan constitution says that no law in the country would be made in violative of Quran and Sunnah. But every law which is in Pakistan practiced today, whether it is political law or judicial law or economic law, is actually at war with Quran and Sunnah and our Islamic faith and values. So this is the conflict. No country in the world has this conflict except Pakistan. In China, whatever they believe in, whatever the people believe in, they have made the laws accordingly. In Saudi Arabia, whatever they believe in, they have the laws following it. Iran, exactly the same. In Russia, Britain, USA, nowhere you have this conflict of values of faith and the state. Islam is not like Christianity, which does not have its own political, economic and judicial models. We have our own models, and these have been practiced in the last 1400 years by various dynasties all over the world. And these are tested, proven models. And this is what we are saying.
And how can we bring our current systems in accordance with Islam? If we want a balance, we want a fine line between religion and systems, how can you bring them together?
Even the Western economic model, the whole economic system of the West is now collapsing. And now recently, Prince Charles even led a conference in London on the Islamic mode of banking and finance, on the Islamic principles which could be adopted by the Western banks so that the economy can prosper and stabilize. Because now even they are realizing that the interest-free, the economic model which has zero interest would be more stable than the economic model which has so many variable interest rates built into it. So even the world is now recognizing, while the world global economy crashes and collapses, there is panic in the global economy. US government has this fiscal deficit now, which the US government can't even pay. Millions of US government employees were laid off just a couple of months back because the government could not pay them their salaries. Why is all that economic system is collapsing? Because the Western man-made economic system based on paper currency, banking and bank interest has collapsed. It's an unnatural system. And that's why even they are saying now, let's bank the Islamic way. So this is what we are saying. Everybody is realizing, whether they say it or not, but now they're openly saying it, that Islam has a better economic model available to it. And similarly, But people find it very hard to accept that we have a stronger political model available to us also, because that political model puts very harsh criteria on who can become the leader of an Islamic state. The problem is, no matter what political model you bring, unless and until you have that harsh criteria applied, when you even hire a general manager of a company, you go through 10 different people, very strong resumes, and the best person is appointed. You do not have somebody who is incompetent and corrupt appointed even of a general manager of a corporation. What about the leadership of a nation? And this political model that we have, which itself is corrupt, the system has the laws from the colonial period, the political parties that take place are divisive, corrupt, incompetent, treacherous, feudal, led by political dictators. And when these people, no matter what model you bring, whether presidential or parliamentary, people from this system, this ruling elite, when they come into power, they would do what they do best: rob, loot, cheat and plunder. And this is the point. The criteria, the selection criteria, even in Pakistan's present elections, the very strong criteria is available who can compete in the elections, who can become the member of the National Assembly. But the Supreme Court and all the judicial officers who were responsible for holding the elections violated the constitution so brutally that today there are protests on the streets. Imran Khan's party is now running up. There are hundreds of petitions lying with the Election Commission on the corruption. Most corrupt elections which ever took place in Pakistan history was this recent one which brought the government of Nawaz Sharif. Why? Because Pakistan's constitution was violated. Rules were available, but the judiciary made
We had
sure.
Article 62 and
Article
nothing
62
was
and
implemented.
63, not a
And
single.
nothing was implemented.
And if you apply the Article 62 and 63 very strongly and very harshly as per the ethos of the constitution, then the corrupt people would be eliminated.
As it was said that we had an independent election commission to monitor the elections, but still after the elections we had the rigging complaints. We will continue our discussion. We will stay with us. We'll be right Welcome back, viewers. We are talking about the political system of Pakistan. Is the current system is a failure in Pakistan? The current elections that happened, the most rigged elections that's been claimed in Pakistan, did the election commission play its role fairly? Was the Article 62, 63 implemented in these elections? And the parliamentarians that we have on board right now, do they qualify the Article 62, 63 qualifications? Mr. Zaid Hamid, before going on the break, we were talking on that the system that we already have, which is a parliamentary system, and under which the current elections happen, and then we have these 436 parliamentarians on board right now. Did they follow Article 62, 63? Did the election commission implemented Article 62, 63? And if not, then what about the violation of this article, and who will be held accountable for this?
See, this is exactly what we are saying. The whole country is living in a dilemma that the laws, the people, the system is in conflict with their faith and with the constitution. This is the most unfortunate part. The Supreme Court, which is supposed to be the custodian of the constitution, is actually the biggest violator of it. The political parties which take oath on the constitution to defend the ideology and geography and integrity of this country are the most treacherous, the most corrupt, most violative. So the fact of the matter is that I personally have no doubt that these were probably the last general elections in Pakistan's history under parliamentary democracy. I personally have no doubt. Because
so what will be the future?
What will be the future?
Are we going to change the parliamentary system to presidential system?
The last 5 years of democracy under Zardari's rule have destroyed Pakistan to such an extent that Pakistan just cannot sustain another 5 years of similar democracy. Something is going to snap, and it's already snapping. The economy is snapping, the law and order is snapping, the national integrity and unity is snapping. The wars that are almost upon us now, for which this CIA-sponsored democracy was imposed at the first place, are now ready to launch into Pakistan, from the drone wars to urban insurgencies to Indian cold start to internal law and order crisis. The Pakistan's biggest city, Karachi, is seeing almost 200 people killed every month on street urban violence and urban insurgency. This is Karachi, the biggest metropolis of Pakistan. And if this is where the government has totally collapsed in the last 6 months to even control the basic law and order, and where urban insurgency has reached to an extent where almost 200 people are being killed every month on the streets, then you can imagine where this democracy is going. So something is going to snap, as we say. Why? So this system is unsustainable. It can't last. And we will have to, either Pakistan would start to lose territory, like we lost Swat, like we lost the Waziristan and the tribal areas, and large areas of Balochistan are not under the control of the federal government, and Karachi is almost anarchic now. Either we start losing territory and things start to become so unstable, the implosion of the state and implosion of the provincial government start to take place. Or decisively the Supreme Court may intervene to dismiss the government on the charges of corruption, mismanagement, bad governance and violating its oath. It has happened in the past. Supreme Court will have to play its constitutional role to keep a check on the government, that government is following the constitution and not violating the state.
I think with the current framework of our Supreme Court, it has the strength to do that, to overrule the current political leadership.
What we are giving you the options. Within the system, these options are available. The point to be noted is that the anarchic forces, the forces that are destroying the country, which are actually imploding it from within, do not follow the system, do not follow the law, do not follow the constitution. And like the insurgent groups, they do not respect the constitution or the state. So if the organs of the state do not deliver and the state start to have multiple organ failures, then only the last remaining organ of the state will have to move in, to step in, to fill in that void, and that institution is army. So if the political governments do not deliver, that has exactly been happening in the past also. That in the past, the political governments have been collapsing for multiple reasons, and then army would be forced to move in. Then long periods of martial law, then the military rulers would hand over the government to the political government, then another few years of total political chaos. And you would also note, interestingly, that despite the fact you might hate martial laws, you might dislike them, and we also strongly disagree with martial laws, they should not be here, but in Pakistan's environment, the most stable periods of political stability were those under military rulers. If General Ayub Khan's 10-year era, the most progressive, most dynamic, Pakistan was flourishing and most strongest in its history under Ayub Khan's era, when the new dams were made, Islamabad was made by a military dictator, new city was created. Under General Zia's rule, Pakistan was the strongest foreign policy, strongest economy. Then even under General Musharraf's rule, despite all the mistakes, Pakistan economy was far higher, far better than any of the periods of political parties that we have seen in the past. So what I fear is, while the army does not want to interfere into the politics at all, and the present circumstances, but the collapse of the state, the system failure, the organ failure, the failure of the Supreme Court, the failure of the Parliament and the government and the provincial governments may force the army to intervene just to recover the state from the implosion that we are facing today. And this possibility seems real, because I do not see any possibility of political government making amends. They are constantly making blunder after blunder, week after week, and absolutely no sign of recovery in any quarter. In fact,
if you think that if we analyze the parliament and the responsibility of parliamentarians, just so that we can have some structure going on, if we ban the authorities of parliamentarians to deal with the funds under the name of development projects, and they do only the legislation, you think that ban would put parliamentarians to do legislation only?
If Pakistan wants to learn anything from Iran, it is the political model that Pakistan needs to learn from it. And Iran has done brilliantly. What Iran has basically done is, whatever political model they have created, they have studied all the ills and the weaknesses of the various political models and removed them and built a very sustained, strong political model for themselves. In Iran, you always have a technocratic government. No political, feudal, corrupt person can become a minister. President Ahmadinejad, for example, when he was the president, or Rouhani now who is the president, his government is all technocratic. His railway ministers, his minister for communication, transport, law, all these are very technocratic people. They do have a parliament which is elected, but the parliament cannot become ministers. In Pakistan, the source of corruption is this, that all the parliamentarians, they strive to become ministers, and they are feudals and they are corrupt people, and then they make money through the powers as a minister. And the powers between the president and the spiritual leader are divided in Iran also. It's like division of power between the president and the prime minister. So certain elements, like in France, for example, the president deals with certain issues and prime minister deals with certain issues. In England, only prime minister deals with everything. In America, president deals with everything. So Iranians have distributed the powers between the spiritual leader and the president. They have made a technocratic government for themselves. They made sure technocratic government is very always comes into power, and no political feudal and lateral entry should come and take over those places, and the parliament is only for lawmaking and advice and do not have any financial or legal powers in its hand. So this kind of model, if you make in Pakistan, is the possibility that Pakistan would be able to recover out of the mess we are in. At the present circumstances, there is no hope, and this system will continue to go collapse after collapse, as we said.
How do you see the local body elections? As they say that after the local body elections, when they will have union councillors, the funds would be deposited to them, and then the MLAs won't have anything to do with the funds.
The point is, the judiciary is so weak, there is no accountability in Pakistan. And without accountability, even if you bring in angels, they would do the corruption. And the fact of the matter is that we have seen this in the past. The local bodies elections have been happening since 1950s and 60s. The last 50 years Pakistan is having local bodies elections, but nothing has improved for the simple reason, the corruption. And corruption is an issue which even at the founding fathers, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, when he created Pakistan in 47, had warned the nation that you will have to be very careful of the evil of corruption. It should be nipped in the bud. It was never nipped in the bud. Now, the Mr. President of Pakistan, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, was known globally as Mr. 10%. And it was published in the headlines, the British newspaper, that when Asif Ali Zardari shook hand with David Cameron, the headline was, Mr. Cameron should count his fingers as Pakistani president might steal it because of his reputation. So unfortunately, this is the level of leadership we have. The world sees them as the most corrupt, incompetent, treacherous people. And since there is no accountability from the judiciary, that is why being corrupt pays in Pakistan.
So if we see the political landscape where you said about Mr. Zardari had a reputation of being Mr. 10%, how do you see our current Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and then how do you see the other political leaders like Imran Khan? Who could be the best candidate who can take out Pakistan from these disasters?
The point is, there is absolutely no leadership in Pakistan today which can deliver under the present system. The system also needs to be changed. We don't have the leadership. We don't have the visionary, philosophical leadership which can create spiritual democracy or benevolent dictatorship. We don't have the leadership which follows or understands the philosophical wisdom of nation building. Allama Iqbal, the poet philosopher, had said that nations are born in the hearts of the poets and they are destroyed at the hands of the politicians. This is precisely what is happening with Pakistan. Pakistan was created, built, dreamt in the heart of a poet philosopher, but now it's being destroyed at the hands of the politicians. And none of the political leaders of Pakistan even know the names of the books written by Allama Muhammad Iqbal, let alone knowing his philosophy and ideology of what great leadership is all about. These are petty leadership. They only talk about gas connections and building roads and building a bridge and a few housing schemes.
When they should be doing the legislation.
When they should be giving a philosophical and ideological vision to the nation. They should be, but they're all traders. They're traders, either they're feudals, either they are corrupt, either they are treacherous. I mean, none of the leadership in Pakistan today is visionary enough to even understand what nation building is all about. And this is the unfortunate part. So no matter what system you bring in, you do not have the leadership. You do not have philosophers. You do not have leadership which has the vision, will, capability and the courage and the spirituality to become a leader. To lead a nation and to make a great nation. Our founding fathers were like that. So, but this leadership is neither taking guidance from them, neither is learning from the lessons of history, and neither willing to change itself or the legacy of the British era. So this is the unfortunate part. Iranian model, I would still insist, is probably the closest to what Pakistan can adopt.
A presidential system.
Iranian presidential system, in which a president is authorized to bring his own technocratic government. The parliament is also there but has no financial powers. So being a parliamentarian does not become a lucrative business. You only go there because you want to advise,
not for legislation,
not to make money. And then the powers between the president and the prime minister are distributed and divided so that there's a check and balance on each other. That would be a new model. Nowhere in the world you find a model which Iran practices, because Iran has adopted from various models, created a new, again based on lots of things, based from the earlier period of the Islamic Caliphate era. Lots of things the Iranians have adopted from there as well. So this is what we say, a political model which is closer to our ethos, our religion, our faith, our ideology and our constitution. Only that would work in Pakistan, a complete social, political, economic, judicial re-engineering. If the state organs do not do it, then the anarchic forces will force them to.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, we have last minute left. You have suggested that a presidential form of a system could be a better system for Pakistan, as the example was given of Iran. So now that we have a suggested system intact, then who do you see leading this system the way we are seeing Iran leading? Do you see any political leadership currently in Pakistan who can lead that system in the true sense as well?
You see, I'll be very honest with you. As I said, this present existing political leadership has a vested stake. They are corrupt people and they have a vested stake in this corrupt system to make it continue. So they will never change it. But anarchic forces, because of their incompetence and corruption, the system is imploding itself. It's falling apart. It's falling down. And then the only stable institution, either the judiciary or the armed forces, will have to intervene to stabilize the system. And then it will depend upon them to bring about a system change. A technocratic caretaker government for 3 years or 5 years, which stabilizes the system, changes the whole political, judicial, economic model, bring about a whole social re-engineering according to our faith and ideology on the basis of Khilafat-e-Rashida or the period of the Golden Caliphate, and then re-engineer the system and bring about according to our ethos, not transplanted economic, political, judicial models that we have today, which are decadent, decomposed, not in line with our ethos and faith, and collapsing and not delivering. Because the system is collapsing itself, and the people who are running the system will never change it. What I say is, they're all heading for a crash. An army or the judiciary will have to intervene decisively in not very far future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zaid Hamid. Viewers, as you saw, we tried to analyze the current political system, and what we came down to the solution is the presidential form of system in which the parliamentarians should be doing the legislation only, technocrats should be working as the ministers, and if the current parliamentary system that we have right now, the parliamentarians are doing more of the ministers' work than the legislation, if the ban should be put on the parliamentarians not to participate in the funds for the development projects or the ministry work, that could put a better legislation and that could give us a better parliament as well. That's it for tonight. See you all next Sunday. Until then, Allah Hafiz and good night.